time for our first tutorial. Here I have a set of tools that I'll be using throughout the haircut. Check it out. My model today, I have a shorter length, kind of buzz cut length, but he is actually growing it out. So right now I'm actually just assessing the head shape. Notice how it's a little bit triangular. I can tell that there's a lot of bulk on his head. I'm really trying to see where the parietal ridge separates the side of the head versus the top of the head. And I'm also gonna be checking to make sure that his temple peak points line up. This is a very essential point for me when I'm fading in order to make sure that there's symmetry. I'm also gonna be checking out the hairline here, noticing that there's actually a lot of growth patterns that are going different ways. Some people call them cowlicks, but I'm actually just combing it with the grain to show exactly which way his hair wants to go naturally. I don't think that I'm gonna be touching up his hairline too much. I'm looking at the recession, which is also known as the hairline, and it's kind of lacking density in the corner. So I'm deciding whether or not to actually line that up, but noticing the temple, I have 3 different points here that I really want to use in my fade or in any fade to show whether it's going to be low, mid, or high. And that's the hairline as well as the temple peak point and the temple arch. So let's get started. I'm going to be doing a bald fade today for you guys. I'm going to be doing a mid-skin drop fade, classic fade. I think a lot of people go for this fade. It's super clean, and I'm going to try to get it to stretch out a little bit so it's a little bit softer of a fade versus a high contrast. So as I go in with my liner, I want to show you guys that I'm actually using the full blade in order to make a straight line just until I get behind the ear. And at this point now, I'm actually going to only use half the blade. I find that personally it is a lot easier to make a curved line if I'm not using such a wide part of the blade. And for the sake of this video, I'm just going to be going ahead on one panel or one side of the head. I'm not going to be going all the way around. I just want to show you guys how I'm going to be creating these guidelines too. I'm using my one open above my bald line just to create my second guideline. And this is going to be right in between. Now, there's so many different ways that people fade. You can fade top down, you could fade down up. But what I think is really important is that the lines that you create, especially when you're starting out, they should be parallel. Meaning that my bottom line there with the bald line, as well as the line above it, the 1.5, as well as the one above that, what I'm making right now, is a number 3. All of these lines are actually going to be parallel to each other. This is really going to help my consistency when I'm blending out the fade as well as getting into the detail phase near the end. And it's also going to help me repeat this process on the same side. So you notice as I comb from the top down, not only am I taking off loose hair, but I'm also showing you that these lines are relatively close to being spaced out the same distance. You guys notice here that I'm actually just going to take out all of the bulk below my first guideline, and I really want to make the skin pop and give it that bald edge. But I also want to show you how I am stretching the ear in different ways, because that area above the ear is really soft skin, and if you don't stretch the ear in the right way, you might actually catch some skin within your liner, causing you to make a cut above the ear. If that happens, don't be alarmed. Just make sure you tend to the cut in a very sanitized way. So as I start to clean my canvas, I start to notice that my guideline could be a lot straighter. So I actually went in there and I just straightened out my guideline, and I think that's a very important tip for anybody starting out. If you guys don't take the time to straighten out those guidelines, you're not really gonna be in the best position to have a consistent fade, okay? So now I'm actually just going in with my shaver by Andis. I just prefer this shaver over the other ones that are out, like the Wall 5-star shaver. I actually prefer the Andis personally. Notice how I went down with the grain in order to cut the hair at a longer length, and then now I'm actually going to go against the grain underneath that, making sure that I don't push any higher than my previous guideline, which is going to create a new guideline. And I believe at these lengths, personally, these are the hardest length guidelines to knock out, the ones that are really, really short and closer to the skin. So just be aware of your pressure. And just check out how I'm really staying parallel to these guidelines even as I'm fading. So I'm going to be playing with the blade here, open versus closed. For those of you that don't know about the clipper and how it works, I definitely want to get into a more detailed description on the theory behind fading. I'm going to be releasing this video next week. But for now, I really just want to show you the steps that I take in order to perform this bald fade. So halfway between the 1.5 line and the bald line, I'm actually opening up my clipper and I'm slowly, ever so slightly flicking out. And I did demonstrate a little bit about that flick out there in the video. I just wanted to show you guys that it's really systematic the way that I fade. I'm not pushing it up any higher than I need to, and I'm also getting into muscle memory for my flick out. So notice how, although I'm working from right to left, sometimes I'm going back and working left to right, I'm still very consistent with my flick out. And playing with this lever allows me to get shorter lengths within the guard or without the guard. In this case, it's without the guard. I went from an open, which is a 0.5, to a closed or in between, which is a 0.25, and fully closed, which is a 0. And you guys can really start to see this line is slowly getting knocked out. And I think it's important that I tell you guys this, that in order to knock out the line that you created, you most likely have to use the same guard or same tool that you used to create that line in order to knock it out. Whether that means you're using a different technique like going against the grain or flipping the clipper, but a 0 alone is not going to fully blend out the trimmer line, okay? So although it looks like it might be faded, I think that, you know, when you see me work through the steps, you'll start to see this fade even more than it is right now. So I'm actually gonna take the clipper and I am gonna go against the grain. It's kind of like a backhand, and what that does, it adds a little bit of length to my stroke in order to take out that bald line with very fine detail. There it is, guys. I have officially knocked out this bald line, which just leaves me with the 1.5 line going into the number 3 at the top of the head there before it goes past the parietal ridge into the top of the hair, which again, we are growing out. So I really only need to work with anything I say from probably a number 1 to a number 3 in order to take out this bulk. Here I'm throwing on my number 2 guard, and this is a number 2 guard open. I'm gonna work a little bit from the top down for this one, just so that I can make sure I don't push the weight too high into the number 3 or create a new guideline. And this technique here, actually, I just wanted to show you the difference between going straight up and off the skin versus going with it and actually rounding out the head. So by doing this technique, I'm actually trying to achieve more of a square shape, which I think is definitely like a tapered kind of look. It'll help the hair grow out a lot nicer in the long run, and also I think just for aesthetics, it's just a nicer shape to look at, especially when the hair is at this length, instead of it growing out in more of like a afro type of way where it just poofs outwards in a circle shape. Again, just playing with my guard, making sure that I am not exceeding the last guide above it and creating a new line. I can't stress that enough. How many times I've done that in the past are countless. So if I can really drill that into your guys' your knowledge to make sure that you guys understand that, I think it's really important. It's a really important habit to build. All right, so I'm pointing out here that the density, although it's at the same length, you notice how it's not as dense in the front, okay? So as I go ahead with my next guard, I'm actually not gonna take it all the way at the beginning of the peak point. And what that'll do, it will visually create the effect of the fade. Now, up until now, I've been telling you all the technical steps of the fade, right? But there is also a visual aspect to fading. And I really think it's important that in this visual aspect, you guys do whatever you can to train your eyes to see the dark spots, to see the bulk, whatever you want to call it. Just notice it. Notice that it's there, and eventually, as you gain the experience and you do more haircuts, you can master all the techniques in order to visually make this fade get to the next level. okay? If you cannot see it, then I don't think that you will accurately be able to handle those areas of difficulty. So training your eyes, I think, is one of the most important things that you can do when you're first starting to cut hair. So I'm getting into the detail here now, and this is where I really like, where I get excited about the fade, because all the lines just look, I mean, it's not a complete haircut yet, but this is where you start to see the fade really blend. I'm getting into my number one here, and I'm just about finished taking out this last line, and then we're gonna get straight into the detail phase. This half guard that I have in front of me here, it is a specific guard that does not come with your set when you buy wall premium guards or any wall clipper. You're gonna have to buy these separately, but I do recommend picking them up because they get everything in between the number one and the number two guard, as well as with the lever to be able to be used for everything in between that in detail. So now I feel like I've knocked out that line pretty good. Like, it can always be better, honestly. Nothing's ever perfect, and I could literally sit here for hours and just detail. But for the sake of this video, I really want to show you guys how I'm using the corner of my clipper with the 0.5 guard on top of it closed, just to knock out certain areas where the hair tends to clump up with density. And remember, the fade is all about visually looking like it's blended. Even if the hair needs to be cut a little bit higher up or it's slightly uneven, as long as it looks good, I think that's all that matters when your clients are looking in the mirror. They don't care whether you missed a step or whether you did a shortcut to make a step a little bit more efficient. I think it's really important that it just looks good at the end of the day. So here we are. I'm going to be playing with the lever without any guard. And I'm at the point now where I'm just detailing this haircut. I really want to take it and give it that extra oomph, and I really want to make sure that this haircut is customized to my client. And this is all about playing with the lever, as well as using those corners and having a good understanding of how the head is moving in terms of the shape of it. Because the head shape and the skull shape, all the different components of the head, they're not the same on any person. They're not perfectly the same. So picture it like this. If you're a painter, you're painting on a flat canvas. Like, we are taking away hair and leaving hair strategically as barbers on a canvas that is always changing shape. So as long as you do the fundamental steps, you will be able to complete a fade, but this is where the fade gets taken to the next level. This is where you actually detail it and spend the time. So if you can actually get more efficient and get used to cutting hair fundamentally, then you can spend more time detailing, and you can actually create better work, as well as build your skills as a barber. Look at that, guys. I think that's starting to look pretty decent. Honestly, more than decent. Maybe I'm not giving myself enough credit, but honestly, like, this type of fading technique, I don't think that you can go wrong with this. There are certain spots here that I'm always going to say that, it could be done better. I will not call myself a master barber or say that this fade is perfect, because I don't think that exists. But I think for the most part, I'm proving to you guys that this system works. Anybody can do it. I think it takes obviously a lot more time to get used to it. But here's a good example of techniques that you can learn. I'm actually putting the clipper towards the scalp, but I'm not angling it all the way to the scalp. I'm actually just flying off of the end of it, and what I'm doing is I'm actually just grazing at the hair. So what I really want to point out is, in the video you can't tell, but I'm actually just listening for the hair to be cut. If you can't hear the hair cut, there's a really good chance that the hair is not being cut, and you're kind of just wasting your time going over an area, and you might end up pressing too hard, or again, creating a new line. So I really want you guys to play with those angles, and if you're mounted to the scalp, you can still angle it off the scalp to give yourself the benefit of just taking away little pieces of the hair, tiny bits, until it gets to that perfect shade, in order to add to that blend that you guys are performing, versus just flicking out. the amount of time I spend detailing, I think it's really important to see that I spend as much time detailing as I do banging out those guidelines, because banging out those guidelines, again, that's a very systematic, technical way of doing it. But this is the visual aspect. This is where we as barbers become artists, and it's very important to have that side of you that wants to be an artist, because that will be the one to push you to just make more beautiful work. You guys can see the difference. Feel free to go back into the video and see the difference of before I started detailing versus after I'm detailing. I'm really just going back and forth until I'm satisfied, and thankfully for the sake of this video, I did it in the morning, and I have time, right? I have time to actually just work on it and make it to a point where I can present it to you guys and feel confident that it's my best work. But also keep in mind that this is something that you have to perform at some point for your client, and your client does not expect to maybe sit in your chair for 2 hours, right? This haircut with the fade on all angles, I probably took about an hour to do it, just because, I'm still getting used to the camera and all the angles, making sure that everything is visible. But for the most part, I hope you guys are enjoying this video so far, because, man, like I said, there's going to be so many more videos that I can bring to the channel. I would definitely love to hear from you guys, what you guys want to see. So if you guys want to comment in the box down below, feel free to shout me out, say what's up, and let me know what you guys want to see. There's going to be plenty more videos, and notice I'm releasing every single week. I'm going to be consistent with this. So if you guys are enjoying what you've been seeing so far, you can expect that there's plenty more to come. This area here is a very difficult area for beginners. In the industry, generally we call them dips, and this is the part of the skull where behind the ears, you're gonna get a little bit of uneven surface. This is gonna be different from person to person. So the way that we attack this, some people like to say that they push it a little bit higher in those areas, and some people just say that, you're gonna go ahead with the corners and just like make it a little bit shorter. But the whole point, again, is to make it as visual as possible. And at the end of the day, I think that extra bit of TLC, that tender love and care, is going to take that haircut or that fade to the next level. All right. So real quick here, I just want to show you, I'm going to repeat the process on the other side. And this is what I want to show you. I started the exact same way. I'm going through the same fundamental steps. And in doing so, I believe that I'm going to make a very consistent blend on both sides. Notice how I went with the bald liner, or the liner, sorry, and I just took it from the temple peak point, took it straight across, made all my guidelines, and then I balled it out below, and I'm going from the bottom up until I get rid of that last line above. And then again, going in with my detail work, using the corners, using the different techniques before moving on to the back. Notice in the back here, I'm actually going to show you guys that there is a different shape in terms of your guideline. It is actually a smiley face. See where I took my comb there? I'm actually pointing out to you guys that if you're doing a drop fade, you can't expect that the line in the back is going to be perfectly horizontal, okay? The whole point of it is it's dropping from the temple to just above the O-bone, and that is a point on the head there that just sticks out right down the middle. And in my next video, I'll explain more about this, but just expect that you're gonna see more of a curved line in the back if you are doing a drop fade. One more tip for you guys for doing the back of the head, because there's a lot of bone structure, a lot of flat surfaces and uneven surfaces. I think it's really important to make sure you guys know how to stretch the skin. Stretching the skin will expose any of those darker areas and allow you to just attack it better. And really quickly here, I'm just showing you guys how I like to go in with scissor over comb, with clipper over comb, excuse me, just to get the shape in. And I'm also doing some freehanding, which is a little bit more advanced, just to be able to get the shape in without affecting the fade. I'm just grazing at the hair. I'm not actually getting into the scalp and affecting the fade. I'm just grazing the hair so that from the front, the shape looks symmetrical, okay? And notice you can see a little bit of discoloration from his last color. It's a little bit difficult to see, but in some parts you can see that it's not perfectly even of a blue color. There's a little bit of green in there. But but that aside, he's growing it out and he's probably gonna have a new hairstyle within a month. So I'm actually just gonna go ahead and line this up for you guys. Using my liner, I'm actually choosing to push up the widow's peak just a little bit. And again, I'm going to maintain these corners and keep it as natural as possible. I'm not actually pressing down to line it up. I am just pushing upwards to a point where I'm removing forehead hair and not the hairline itself. All right, so this nice aerial view that I gave you guys, I thought this would be a cool angle. I haven't seen this in any other video before. I'm gonna be hitting this with my straight razor, and notice how I'm stretching the skin. I don't wanna overly stretch the skin. As another tip I'll give you guys, if you overly stretch the skin, you will make a curved line, okay? Again, I'm gonna say that. If you overly stretch the skin, you will make a curved line. You just want to mount the skin so that you can let the straight razor itself is straight. You can use that tool to make straight lines and really make those edges pop. And usually I wouldn't use this technique, but just showing you how you can also do a backhand on your razor. If I did the forehand, then you wouldn't be able to see it at this angle. So again, I'm just removing forehead hair. I'm not actually affecting the hairline except for the widow's peak. And notice how I changed my angle here with my razor, just because the hair growth pattern actually goes directly to the right side of the client's head. So I'm going from right to left in order to take off all of that hair right down to the skin, allowing this forehead hair to last a little bit longer. So I want to thank you guys for tuning into this video. Man, I hope you guys got a lot out of it. This is my first tutorial. So please let me know what you guys think. I want to know how to make these videos better for you guys. And you can expect too that I'm going to be releasing that contest. I'm going to announce the winner for that contest on my next video next week. So stay tuned, and we hope to see you guys again. Take care.